Hello and welcome to a new video. In this video I'm going to show you how to install the Oracle 12c database on the Centos 7 system. This tutorial is going to include the preparation and configuration of the Centos 7 machine for the Oracle 12c installation. Also, we are going to test the Oracle database command line utility called SQL Plus and the web-based Oracle Enterprise Manager. The prerequisites for this tutorial are a Centos 7 64-bit machine that has at least 1 GB of RAM. Mine is a virtual machine that has 4 GB of RAM, and of course you are going to need root privileges to perform most of the operations that I'm going to show you in this tutorial. The first thing I'm going to show you in this tutorial is how to install the required packages for the Oracle database software. The required packages are going to include things like the gcc library, the binutils package, and the glibc package as well. All the commands that I'm going to use in this tutorial, I will put them in the video description so that you don't need to write them all if you want to follow with me. So you can just copy and paste these commands. So the first command, the command to install the required packages is this one. I'm going to copy and paste it in my terminal, and you can do the same. You can just copy it from the video description and paste it in your terminal as well. So you need to be logged in as root to perform this operation. I have already done this, so I'm not going to run this command, but rather I'm going to move to the next step in this tutorial. Next, we are going to configure the user and the system for the Oracle installation. The Oracle database installer cannot run with root privileges, so it has to run under a normal Linux user. So for this, we have to create a user that we are going to call Oracle and assign it to two groups that we are going to create as well, the group oinstall and the group DBA. So again, for me, I have done all the preparations and configurations, so I'm just going to show you what these preparations and configurations are. So the first thing you are going to do in this second step is create the oinstall group, and you create it like this, and you have to be root or a sudoer, of course. So you do sudo, you can add sudo here if you are not running with root, sudo groupadd oinstall, or just groupadd oinstall if you are a root user. Next, you will create the DBA group, same syntax, groupadd DBA, and then you create the Oracle user. And the Oracle user, you create it with the useradd command like this: useradd -g oinstall -G DBA, and then Oracle. And what this command means is that we are going to create the Oracle user, and we will assign it to the primary group DBA, the primary group oinstall, and the secondary group DBA. So capital G is for secondary groups, and small g is for the primary group. Next, you would have to define a password for the Oracle user, and the command to do this is passwd and then Oracle. And when you hit enter, you will be prompted to put in the new password for the Oracle user, and then you will be prompted to confirm that password. As you can see here, I am logged in with the Oracle user, so the Oracle user has already been created for me. After creating the Oracle user and these two groups, we need to configure our system for the Oracle installation. And there are some kernel parameters that we must configure for the Oracle installation. The first file that we are going to edit for configuration is the sysctl.conf file that is under the etc folder. So to open this file, you use vim. Let me switch to the root users so that I can show you this file. So in the sysctl.conf file, you add these lines in the end. And again, I'm going to put these configuration parameters in the description below, so that you can copy and paste it in your file as well. So after pasting these parameters, you do escape:x to save the configuration. Okay. The second file, before going to the second file, you would have to display the kernel parameters and apply them. So if you want to display the new kernel parameters, you do sysctl-p. And if you want to apply these parameters, you do sysctl-a, and they will be applied. And again, you would have to be root to do that. The next file that we are going to edit is the limits.conf file under etc/security. So let's see what this file has. So the parameters that you are going to add to this file are these 4 lines. You can remove the spaces between them like this. So these are the parameters that you are going to add to this file. And these parameters, they specify the max number of processes and the max number of open files, descriptors. So after editing this file and adding these lines, you do escape:x to save the file. Next thing you'd have to need to do is install the X Window system. Again, for me, I have this installed, but if you don't have it installed, this is the command that you can use to install the X Window system. So yum group install -y X Window system, and this way you can SSH to run the GUI with SSH-x option. After configuring the system and the user, the next thing you will need to do is download the Oracle database from the Oracle website. And in order to be able to download the database, you have to register for an Oracle account. For me, I have downloaded the Oracle database as a zip file from the Oracle website, and I have extracted it in the following folder. So this is the folder. So these are the contents of my database, or the contents of my zip file. In order to allow the Oracle user to perform the installation, you would have to change the owner and the group of the of this folder, of this extracted folder. So in order to do that, you run this command: chown dash capital R Oracle colon o install, and then the folder that you want to change ownership, and it is the current folder for me. So the dash R option means that we are going to do this recursively for all subfolders and files. So everything inside this folder is going to be owned by the Oracle user and the oinstall group. As you can see here, I have already done that. So the owner of everything here is the Oracle user and oinstall group. But in the beginning, if you have done the extraction with the root user, everything is going to be owned by the root user and the root group. That's why you have to change the ownership. Next, we will create two folders, U01 and U02, and change their ownership as well to the Oracle user and to the oinstall group. In order to create the folders U01 and U02, you use the following command. By the way, U01 is going to be used for the Oracle installation files, and U02 is for the Oracle database files. So the command is rmdir, it's make dir -p U01 U02, and then to change the ownership, you do chown -r Oracle colon o install U01 U02. And then you change the permissions like this: chmod -r, R means recursively, 775 U01 U02, and then lastly we do chmod g+s U01 U02. And if I do ls -l on the root folder, you can see here U01 and U02 are owned by the oinstall Oracle user and oinstall group. I also want to make this folder Oracle that has the Oracle database software inside of it. I want to make it owned by Oracle user and oinstall group. So I'm going to apply this command to the Oracle folder as well. So let's do that. Okay, let me clear my screen. And now we are ready to start the Oracle installation. And before starting the installer, let's make sure that the X Windows system is working fine. Let me first switch to my Oracle user, su-l Oracle, clear my screen. So if I type here xhost, it says access control enabled and all the authorized users can connect. So let's start the Oracle installer. Again, it's here under /oracle/database, and the name of the launcher is run installer. Hit enter and you will get these checks, and I have passed all of them, passed, so everything seems fine. And I get the Oracle database splash screen. I'm not going to receive any security updates for this installation, so I'm going to uncheck this and click next and just say yes here. In the next screen I will be prompted for 3 options. The third option is upgrade an existing database, and it's not the case. The second option is install a database software only without any database, and the first option is install the database software and create and configure a database. So we are going to go with this first option. The next screen is we are going to choose the class of the system. This is not a server class system, because this is a virtual machine on my laptop, so it's a desktop class. So choose desktop class and click next. But for you, if you are running this on a server class system, you can choose server class. For the next screen, we are going to configure some options for our database. So the Oracle base folder is going to be u01/app/oracle, and the software location is going to be u01 app oracle product 12.2.0 and db home 1. You can change it if you want, but I'm going to keep this to the default. Next option is database file location. As I said, we are going to be using the U02 folder for this option. For database edition, I'm going to install a standard edition of the Oracle database, and I'm going to need at least 7.5 gigabytes of free space on my disk, and I do have that free space. For the character set, I'm going to go with the OS local, which is this one. For the OS DBA group, I'm going to leave it to DBA. For the Oracle database, I'm going for the global database name, I'm going to call it oracle.mirahi.com, and I'm going to type a password, something I can remember, but not very strong password. And this is not going to be a container database. It's going to be a non-container database. So I'm going to click next now, and it's going to say that my password is not strong and does not meet the Oracle recommended standards. So do I want to continue? Yes. I'm not going to change the password for now. For the inventory directory, the default is this one, u01 app ora inventory. I'm going to keep it to default, and I'm also going to leave the default group oinstall and click next. Now the installer is going to perform some prerequisite checks. if there are any errors, we cannot continue the installation, but if we have some warnings, the installer is going to give us the opportunity or the option of ignoring those warnings. So let's see what it's going to say. So we have two warnings. We have one warning about the swap size and one warning about soft limit of the maximum stack size. So these are issues that we can fix easily. I can add more space to the swap size, and I can increase the maximum stack size in the configuration. So for the moment, I'm going to ignore this to be able to continue the installation. And as I said, these are issues that we can fix easily. But you see, if you don't ignore these issues, it's not going to allow you to continue the installation. But if you ignore it, the next button is going to be enabled, and you are going to be able to continue to the next screen. And again, I get prompted about these warnings, so I'm going to say yes, I want to continue. Now I have a summary of all the options that I have set for my installation, the global settings, and then the inventory information and the database information. So you can go back if you think you want to change something, but for me, I'm going to leave it to the default, or sorry, I'm going to leave everything as is and click install to start the installation. So as you can see, the installation process here is going to go through some steps. First prepare, then copy files, then link binaries, then setup, then set up the Oracle base, then execute some root scripts, and these are scripts that we are going to run manually, as you are going to see, and then we are going to configure the Oracle database. So for the moment, I'm going to pause the video and resume recording once this process has finished, in order to not make the video very long. So I will be back shortly. Now that the installation process has gotten to this step, execute root scripts, it is asking me to run these two scripts as a root user. So I'm going to start with the first script. So I'm going to copy the link to this script, come back here to my terminal and switch to the root user and paste the link. So what this script has done is changing the permissions of U01 app or inventory, add read-write permissions for group, remove read-write execute permissions for world, and change group name of Aura inventory to oinstall, and that's it. And for the next script, I'm going to copy it again, clear my screen, paste it, and click enter. And it's telling me that the following environment variables are set as Oracle owner, Oracle, and Oracle home to this path. And now it's asking me to enter the full path name of the local bin directory, and by default it's usr local bin. So now I'm going to leave it as default and hit enter. Now it's asking me, do you want to set up Oracle Trace File Analyzer? I'm going to say yes. And once this operation has finished, I can come back to my to this window and click OK, meaning that I have finished running these two scripts, and the installation process is going to continue the remaining steps. So as you can see here, execute root scripts is finished, it succeeded, and now remaining are these three steps. Now one of the steps is finished, so we have two steps remaining. And now, as you can see, the installation has finished. So I'm going to click next, and it's telling me here that this is the link to the Oracle Database Manager Express. So I'm going to click close to finish the installation. Now we need to set the Oracle environment variables. So let's run some commands. So this is to create the environment variable Oracle SID. So our Oracle SID is Oracle, and Oracle home, and add the Oracle's bin directory to the path environment variable. If everything went correctly, and if we do SQL plus as sysdba, we should be able to run the SQL plus utility. And now we have no errors, and we are connected to the Oracle Database 12c Standard Edition that we have just installed. You can run the following command if you want to set a password for the sys user, and the command is alter user sys identified by and a password. I'm going to choose Oracle as the password for the sys user, and this is a test environment, so if you are on production, Oracle is definitely not a strong password. So let's hit enter, and the user has been altered, meaning that the new password has been set for the sys user. The last thing I wanted to show you in this video is how to access the Oracle Enterprise Manager Express, but unfortunately I'm not going to be able to do that because the Enterprise Manager relies on Flash Player. Well, at least the Enterprise Manager of this version of the database 12c relies on Flash Player, and as you probably know, Adobe has retired its Flash Player product. So as you can see, we can no longer run the old versions of the Enterprise Manager that run using the Flash Player. So this part of the tutorial, unfortunately, we are not going to be able to do. And with this, we reach the end of this tutorial in which I showed you how to install the Oracle database 12c on CentOS 7 and how to access the command line utility SQL+. Thank you for watching.